Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching another episode about Men's Guide to Happiness. And today's episode, I invited Martin to talk with me. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Brett. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming in our show. It's nice to meet you.
Great to meet you
So,
too.
let's let the viewers know first about a little bit about you.
Okay, sure. I'm Martin Salama. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I'm known as the architect of the Warriors Life Code, and the life is what I do everything about. It's an acronym for Live Incredibly Full Every Day, which goes right into what you talk about. I believe that when you live incredibly full every day, you're having a happy life and a meaningful life. And I believe there's a difference between the two. Happy is self love, self care, even selfish, which is a good thing
Mm-hmm.
sometimes,
Yeah.
most of the times. And then meaningful is selfless, where you're giving out to others, you're doing for others, because you could have a happy life without meaning, and you could have a meaningful life and not be happy. So I
Mm-hmm.
believe when you have both, then you're living incredibly full every day, which is life.
Mm-hmm. I like the way you put it. You came up with yourself, right? That's
I
your
did.
own
I did.
meaning.
That's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna just get right into it.
Great.
And yeah, because you wrote the book, Warrior, no, Worrier to Warrior, because you
Warrior to
have them
warrior.
both in the same way. It's hard for me to pronounce them. Before we
It's hard for
talked
most
a little
people
bit,
too.
you
You're
have
not
like,
alone.
yeah. But before went live, you showed me that little thing that makes it easier to say.
Warrior
So
with an O
Worrier,
to warrior with an A. Or
right?
as I like to say, oh, I'm a warrior to I'm a warrior and I can conquer the world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because so many people are actually warriors. I know a lot of warriors,
Yeah.
but mostly women. So that's where one thing that was interesting for me that you were saying warrior as for men. So what do men worry about?
What do most men not worry about? They
Well,
worry
I don't
about their
know.
health, they worry about their relationships, their finances, everything. They just don't know how to express it as well as women.
Okay, now I get it. So they do worry the same way, they just don't express it.
Correct.
Is that kind of what makes it a problem because then they suppress it?
Exactly. Exactly. And that goes back to the old thinking of the men have to be strong and don't show their emotions and don't ask for help because those are all things of weakness. And I come from the age of when they talked about being macho, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and, and thank goodness for people like Brene Brown, who's brought the word vulnerability out of the closet. And it's okay to be vulnerable. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean men go out there and just dump all your problems on everybody, but it's
Yeah.
okay to ask for help. It's okay to say you're struggling. It's okay to say, I need to figure out what's going on and allow my emotions to help me get through things.
Mm-hmm. Did you wrote it from your own perspective, from your own experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
My experiences are all through the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you notice that you were a warrior first?
So I think it really started in 2008 when my wife and I were working on a project for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to build a multi-million-dollar health club and tennis center in New Jersey by the Jersey Shore. And it
Mm-hmm.
took us 5 years because we needed to get all the approvals. We needed to go find the land. We had to go the architect, engineer, all those things. And in the meantime, I'm funding this and I'm getting borrowing money, and I'm also getting investors. So by the time we got all the approvals from the city and the state in the 5 years, we had invested close to $3.5 million. And then we go to the bank and we're like, okay, great. And if we went in 2006 and 2007, we would check in with the bank and they're like, yep, we can't wait. We're excited for you. Come back when you get all the approvals. So I came back in 2008 and they're like, no, we're not lending now. I'm like, I don't understand. What are you talking about? Well,
Ooh.
things are slowing down. It's not like it was before. A month
Okay.
later, Bernie Madoff, the subprime loans, the financial world fell apart.
Yep.
crumbled, and I was on the bottom of the pile. And that's when I started to worry. What am I going to do now? I've just
Mm-hmm.
lost my money and other people's money, over $3.5 million. I stopped paying my mortgage. I stopped paying my car payments. A few months later, my son says, "Dad, look outside. They're towing away your car." And there went my BMW.
Oh,
That was a
wow.
new thing for me. I never had that before. I always paid my
Yeah.
bills. And, I was in a state of New Jersey that had so many foreclosures that it took them a few years to finally close, finally foreclose on our house.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in a state of depression. And that was the ultimate of worry, because I was in a situational depression because of
Yeah.
the situation around me. And I was in that worry state for about a year, in that depression state. And I realized during that time that I was always some sort of a worrier, maybe not to the extent I was then, but I
Okay.
always had some worries in my life. I worried about finances. I worried about other things. And I would express them and not express them. I would hold them from my wife because I wanted to protect her.
Mm-hmm.
That was my thinking. Oh, if I don't tell her and I can figure it out on my own, then she doesn't have to be worried as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about a year. And finally, as I started to get out of that, I go, okay, now what do I want to do with my life? I've been in business. I've been a businessman my whole life from when I was
Mm-hmm.
a kid. So what do I want to do now? And I look back in my life, I said, I never really loved being in business. So
Okay.
what do I want to do now? And I thought about it. And one of the things that I was always very good at, I was always involved in community events,
Okay.
fundraisers,
Mm-hmm.
organizations to help people in different ways. And I was always a leader. And as a leader, people would come in and say, "Oh, Martin, I can't do what you're doing." I'm like, "I don't
Mm-hmm.
want you to do what I'm doing. I want you to do what's good for you." And I would show them, "Give me a few hours. I'll show you. Tell me what you like to do, and we'll figure out how you can help." I realized that I was a life coach without being a life coach. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided that I was going to become a life coach for real. So I did the research and I found a place to go. And about 2 months before it was time to start, it was my 24th wedding anniversary. And my wife gave me a very interesting gift. She said, "I want a divorce."
Oh, I did not see that coming.
Right.
Okay. I
So if
was,
you can imagine how I felt, I was devastated. Even though a part of me knew that it was coming, until it really happens, you don't really believe it.
mhm.
And I just kept on saying, "Oh, why does everything happen to me?" Which is another form of worrying, because I
Mhm.
believe when you worry, you're blaming everybody else. You're not looking for the solutions. You're just saying, like, "Oh, the sky is falling. What am I going to do now?" Run around and scream about the sky is falling. So you're not taking responsibility. There's a difference between worried and concerned. To me, worried is exactly what I said. People just throwing it out there, expecting other people to solve their problems.
Okay.
Concerned is, okay, there's something going on. I've got to get in there and figure out how to fix it. So now I'm in this problem. I'm saying, how's everything happening to me? What am I going to do? And I think God sent me a message and said, you know what? You decided you want to be a life coach. Do that anyway. And maybe start by figuring out what's going on in your life. Figure out the
Mhm.
things that are holding you back, that are the things that were not working well for you. And I said, okay. And one of the things was, before I went, they sent me a list of books to read. And one of them was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. You know that book?
Yes. Yes, I've
Yeah.
read it. Mhm.
So for me, when I read the second agreement, which is don't take anything personally, that hit me right between the eyes. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my God, that's what I've always done. And that started the process. And when I went to coach training, they said, you don't have to be who you think you have to be. You can be whoever you want to be. And that started the process of me understanding that I was always a worrier, always looking to blame everybody else, always saying, why is everything happening to me? And I needed to change.
Mhm. Where did you get the list of books? You said,
Well, the school sent it to me beforehand.
okay.
They said, read
Mhm.
one or two of these books before you start training.
Okay. That's good as well. What
Yeah.
was the other book?
Let's see what else was
You
on
don't
that book
remember
on
that?
that list over there. So it's been a long time. It was
Yeah.
2010 when
But
I
that
went.
But that was the main book that made the biggest change,
Yeah,
right?
that was the one. That was the one that made a
Okay,
big
that's the one
difference in
that
my
made
life.
a change.
Yeah.
So from there, you took the training, and did you mind got the change faster, or you just? I think in the beginning when we start, and that's for the viewer as well, when you begin to change your life, your mind kind of like tries to hold you back and
Yeah.
tries to like sketch still, not let you do the things that you know that you want to be doing. It's like you go a few steps ahead and then your
Right.
mind's like pulling you a little bit
Exactly.
back again.
Exactly. I actually call that ants, A-N-T. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean your Aunt Tilly or your Aunt Olga or your Aunt Elaine. I'm talking about your automatic negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you start to do something, you immediately in your head say, no, I can't do that. No, it won't work. So it's the same thing here saying, who the heck do you think you are? It's the gremlins inside of you telling you you're not good enough. And it takes practice and it takes time and commitment to want to change those things.
Mm-hmm. How long did it took you? Do you
Uh,
remember?
I would say that it took me to really start to make a difference a few months, but for it to
Okay.
be sustainable and change, I'm always changing. But I'd say
Yes.
it was about a year until I could look at myself and recognize that I wasn't still the same person I was before.
Mm-hmm. And from life coaching, how long it took you to write the book?
So I wrote a book in about 10 years ago called
Okay.
Recovering from Divorce,
Mm-hmm.
helping people overcome and recover from the emotional pains of divorce. It doesn't matter whether you asked for divorce or someone asked you for the divorce. You
Mm-hmm.
still have emotional pains and you're
Yes.
going to have roller coaster emotions. You'll wake up one day and things will be okay. And then in the middle of the day, something will happen. And then boom, you'll
Mm-hmm.
start to cry. You'll start to, especially women, men too. They just don't cry in public. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Or
But
maybe they feel like crying, but they still don't cry. So that's
exactly.
interesting for me to
Exactly.
hear
They'll
as
have
well.
emotions
Mm-hmm.
of saying, what the heck is happening with my life? And that's, so I wrote this book because coaching helped me get through that tough time. I think God put them in the same place at the same time because he understood this is what I needed to get through the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, divorce emotions there, it's interesting for me to hear. I'm divorced as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to hear from the guy's point of view because a lot of guys who are watching as well, got men, when they go through the divorce, or even women, doesn't matter men or women, when those emotions arise, they react on those emotions. I think what the problem is, they react with anger.
Yes. Yes.
Have you noticed it?
Yes. And to me, I believe anger comes from fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear
Yes,
of
I
the
believe.
unknown, fear of what's going to happen. So your first reaction is to get angry
Mm-hmm.
because you're like, okay, if I get angry, I'm hiding my fear and I'm looking to blame somebody else. I'm looking to not take responsibility. I'm looking to just throw it out there and see what happens. That's all about reacting instead of responding.
Okay, I like how you were saying because the anger is hiding the fear.
Right.
That's a good thing to acknowledge because that's exactly what's happening. You're feeling the emotion of fear, but then you react with anger to not show other people that you're actually scared.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Especially
Okay.
men. Especially
Yeah.
men. These are the default tendencies. For me, going through life training and starting with this whole thing of don't take anything personally, that helped me recognize that I was a people pleaser and I took things personally and that I was a control freak and I needed validation and acknowledgement and recognition for everything I was doing. Because as a people pleaser, you want people to feel like you're pleasing them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when all those things weren't happening, I would get angry to the point I would overreact. And I would be almost like a nuclear reactor where I would leave fallout all over the place and I'd have to go back and fix them. And lots of times I would apologize and say, Perrette, I'm sorry that I freaked out yesterday, but you set me off. You got me going. that's not an apology. That's looking
Hmm.
to defer and deflect what's really going on.
Oh, that's really good that you actually acknowledge that
Yeah,
you
it
are,
took a
because
while. It
most
took a
people,
while.
they don't acknowledge that that's what they're doing.
Yes,
They
yes,
go and they say exactly like you said. They blame that other person, but it was your fault.
right, right,
You triggered
exactly,
me. And instead of taking the responsibility to say, "Well, you triggered me."
exactly, exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a man who passed away. He wrote a book called The Last Lecture. His name was
Okay.
Professor Randy Pausch, and he knew he was going to die, so he gave a last lecture, which then turned into a book. And in it, he talked about the power of apology when you do it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how his children would always apologize, but this happened and that was going on. He says the real apology is when you say, "I'm sorry. This is what I did wrong, and I'm going to work on not doing that again."
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, when you figured out the worrying situation, how do you go to the Worrier?
Right. So for me, it took me a few years. And over this time, I started to like myself and even love myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was why I was so afraid about getting divorced, was because I was afraid nobody would love me. But what it really came down to was me understanding that my fear of that was because deep down inside, I didn't like myself or love myself. So why would anybody else like me? So I started to do work on myself. I started exercising and I lost a lot of weight, and I started to get coached. At the beginning, after coaching, I felt like I couldn't afford it. I'd lost everything. I just had a regular job and I was coaching here and there. And then I started to realize that I needed to change those things with the exercise. A friend of mine started to coach me, who had also gone through the coach training. So he understood the power of coaching when it came to getting me through my workouts and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I built on that and I started to understand that I had to stop saying the words "I can't" to "how can I" or "I can," right? Because "I can't" is defeatist. It's saying I
Mm-hmm.
give up. It's a cop out. It's saying it's somebody else's problem again.
Mm-hmm.
So I started changing, and I all of a sudden I lost 65 pounds. I was loving my life. I was loving what I was doing. It wasn't just about the weight. I was reading better books. I was eating better. I was watching better things. I was growing even more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I loved my life and I wanted to show other people too. And one of the things I was doing was I was meditating. And now I got to tell you, I'm ADHD. So could you imagine an ADHD guy meditating?
Yes, I do. Like,
It's
I
hard.
know how it's hard. Like, I know sometimes I get that. I love meditating as well. I love to do guided meditations myself too, and I wrote meditations. But I know how, even for me, sometimes to get my mind settled on a meditation. But you know what? One thing I learned as well, when it doesn't do it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, it's like,
That was took a
because,
long time for me to get that.
yeah.
And one of these times I had this download of information that I loved my life while I was meditating and I wanted to help other people love their life. So after my 10-minute guided meditation, I wrote for 2 hours. And out of
Uh-huh.
that came the acronym LIFE. Live incredibly full every day that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to put my program together based on that. And I started coaching people on the different techniques and things that I had incorporated into my own life so that I could be happy and have a meaningful life. So it took me 10 years until I wrote my second book, which was the
Mm-hmm.
Worrier to Warrior book. Whoop, there we go, the Warrior to Warrior book.
Yeah. It's actually interesting because I wrote only one so far. Mine is Joyful Life Jumpstart. And when I was writing it, I was going to the same place for meditations as well. I was going on Friday mornings
Mm-hmm.
for like same person for guided meditation group. And it was interesting because, you pulling it out. In that meditation, we also pulled cards. So it's kind of
Okay.
so with pulling cards, but and it was interesting because my book was Joyful Life Jumpstart. And seriously, I was getting cards about joy, joyful, joy. It's like my cards were like, how is that possible? Like all those messages
The
I
law of
keep getting.
attraction.
Yeah, it's just saying like pretty much saying keep on doing what you're doing. You're on the right track.
Right,
And
exactly.
mhm.
Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, so I think that like maybe somebody who else was writing, the meditation is really good for writing.
Sure, sure. It gets you into a place of being cathartic and working within yourself. Lots of things, especially in my first book, came out as I was writing to me to understand what I was going through even more. Because as I said, my book is not just about techniques on how to help people, it's also my stories and how
Hmm.
I incorporated these things with practical things to help me get through them and now help my clients as well.
Hmm. So now what's who's the warrior?
Who's the warrior? The warrior that came from in 2020 when
Hmm.
the whole world shut down because of something called COVID,
Yes.
right? So they
Right
told us
now, I'm gonna tell the viewers because somebody might be watching it in 10 years from now. So right now is 2023.
2023, right? So 3 years ago in 2020, in March of 2020, the world shut down because of something called COVID. And at the time, it was called
Hmm.
Corona. Remember, originally called Corona. And
Hmm.
they said, oh, we're just going to shut down for 2 or 3 weeks and then everything will go back to normal. So that
Hmm.
was in March. And I would find a way every day to get out of the house. I'd put on the mask. I'd even put on the gloves. I'd go shopping. I'd go for a walk with my wife. And by the way, I got married again 5 years ago. So
Nice.
I found a
Congratulations.
beautiful
Good.
woman and all that, beautiful inside and outside. Uh,
Hmm.
and so we would do those things. And now I'm through where it's May and we're still shut down and people are worried about what's going to happen in their lives. Here's the worry again. And people are
Hmm.
just going around saying, oh my God, when am I going to get COVID and what's going to happen when I get it and all this? Instead of saying, I'm not going to get it. I'll keep myself covered, whatever it is. So one Sunday morning, I told my wife, let's go to Manhattan. We live in Brooklyn. Let's go to New York City. Spend the day there with your kids. She has 3 of her kids. They're my bonus children. Not my
Hmm.
stepchildren. They're my bonus children.
Hmm.
So we got into the car and we drove to New York City. Now, anybody that knows New York City, driving on the streets in New York on a regular day, it could take you forever to go even 2 blocks.
Hmm.
But the streets were empty. I was able to drive straight down Fifth Avenue without missing a traffic light. That's how
Wow.
empty the streets were. And I looked around and I told my wife, Sarita, where is everybody? What are they so worried about? They could put their masks on. They could put their gloves on, even if they want. They could stay 6 feet apart. Get out of the house.
Hmm.
Enjoy what's going on. And I realized that the last 10, 12 years, the things I went through, the divorce, losing everything, my weight journey,
Hmm.
all that had prepared me for anything. And I was not going to be worried anymore. So I got into
Hmm.
Facebook and I said, guys, I get it. I understand why you're worried. So let me show you how to go from being worried to being a warrior. Because to me, a warrior is somebody who's gone through the tough times, through the adversities, and didn't worry, more concerned, and came out the other side strong because they understood that life was still going to go on.
Okay. Oh, I love your way. I love your description about what the warrior is. It's not just somebody who goes out there, but it's somebody who has gone through the things,
Right,
has
right.
faced all those things, and then came out as a warrior on the other
Stronger
side.
because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Men and women are warriors, not just men.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the strongest warriors I know in my life are women.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. Because you always think about like warrior, like something in a war and everything, but like your definition of it is so cool. I love it.
Thank you so much, Spirit.
Mm-hmm. So, Martin, so what was the next step? What was the next step for you to understand that now you understand that you are a warrior.
Right. So for me, during the process, a lot of it had to do with me recognizing how my emotions were controlling me, how I reacted to everything. Because remember, I talked about before how I was a nuclear reactor, that I needed to change and not react to everything, not overreact. So I needed to build my emotional strength, right? And I
Yes.
needed to understand that, for example, while I was getting divorced, my wife would call me up, who was not my ex-wife yet, and she'd say, there's something going on. I don't want to fight, but now in my head, she said fight. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna I started to overreact, and it was as if somebody walked into the middle of a boxing ring and went, "Let's get ready to rumble." I started to get upset, and I knew that we were going to get into a fight. And she would tell me what would happen. My emotions were already heightened because she set me up, and I'm not saying she did it on purpose. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is my perception. And she'd tell me what it is, and I would just react and get into a fight with her. And then she'd say, "But I told you I didn't want to fight." So, learning through some of my coaching, because I was still going through coach training at the time, that
Mm-hmm.
I can control how my emotions go instead of my emotions controlling me. At first, I went the total different direction. She'd call up and she'd say that famous line, "I don't want to fight, but," and I'd say, "Okay," and I'd hang up on her. Right there, I'd
Okay.
hang up. And then she called me back. She goes, "What the heck was that?" I said, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't want to fight, so I hung up." So I had to find the balance between the two.
That's funny.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So it became a thing of me understanding how my emotions were playing with me. And I needed to
Mm-hmm.
fix that and stop letting my emotions control what was going on and have an understanding that just because someone says that there's a fight coming doesn't necessarily mean I have to accept the invitation and get into the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's on me. That's for me to decide.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, imagine someone comes to you and they're freaking out, yelling and screaming. Most people's default reaction is to get defensive and to start yelling back. But
Mm-hmm.
imagine instead you go, "Well, Perret, what's going on?" And you keep your emotions level.
Mm-hmm.
Either that person will keep screaming and just give up and walk away, or they'll come down to your level of emotions because you're not giving in to what they're trying to control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
Yeah.
can do that, so part of my course, one of the things I teach that's in my book and in my cards is building your emotional strength and
Mm-hmm.
understanding what happens when you get emotional and
Mm-hmm.
the difference between emotions and feelings, and how, as a matter of fact, in my cards, I talk about it. And let me see if I can find it.
Mm-hmm.
Here, no, that wrong one. I have so many different acronyms. I want to make sure I get the right one. So I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. So it's the Warrior's Life Code method to build your emotional strength and rule your actions. So I took the word life again and
Mm-hmm.
turned it into another acronym. L.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to your inner voice and acknowledge your emotions. Okay. Okay. Somebody came to me and I'm angry. Okay. That's the first step. Acknowledging that you're angry. Don't dismiss it. Don't ignore it. Don't say, "Well, this is who I am and I'm always going to get angry." Recognize it. Then, number two is identify your feelings. Now, there's a difference between emotions and feelings. To me, emotions is that automatic thing that happens when something comes up to you: anger,
Mm-hmm.
happy, sad. Okay. Feelings are, what kind of an emotion is it? Is it a strong emotion of anger or is it a weak emotion? So identify and write down, today, this anger is I'm enraged or I'm just a little ticked off. And I break it down into three categories. And I have, what do you call it? A chart. Across the top are the different kinds of emotions. And then going down are the feelings associated with those emotions. So they can get, if they go to my website, later on we'll talk about that, they can
Mhm.
get this chart as well as a worksheet to help them learn how to control their emotions. It's called connectwithmartin.com. Thank you for it.
Mhm.
So then the next one is F, find out why. Why? Question yourself. Why are you feeling this? Almost like you're on trial and you're the prosecuting attorney and you're the witness as well. So you're questioning yourself. Why am I feeling this? What's going on? Find out why. Ask yourself these questions and write them down. Is this person helping me? Is it hurting me? So on and so forth. And then the E is engage and change and take action. It might be right then or it might be later on. And then you go from there. So that's L.I.F.E.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really good. Yeah, that's really, and it's such a simple, when people realize all those things are actually really simple, but they're simple on the way after you start practicing.
Right. And
Before you
I make
practice,
exactly. I make
mhm,
it tangible where they can write it down and look at it and have the tangible thing in front of them.
mhm. Because before you start practicing, yes, it's hard and everything like this, but after you already know what to do, you practice it, it becomes really easy. Then
Right.
you just
Right.
go to the life with ease. But Martin, I
Exactly.
wanted to say about one thing about emotions as well. A lot of people think, and that's what I teach. A lot of people think that controlling emotions means not having emotions, but
No.
it's nothing. No, we need emotions. Emotions have a purpose, but
Yes.
controlling emotions means that you control your reactions when you have that emotion.
Exactly right. People think life coaching is about teaching people how never to get angry. No,
Mm-mm.
no, it's important to get angry. It's important to get sad. It's important to have those emotions. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also important to understand where they're coming from, how they're affecting you, and how you could change it. I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, I got a call from somebody who had to go to a funeral for his friend's father. And
Mm-hmm.
he hadn't seen the friend in a bunch of years. And this man is in his young 30s, 32, 33 years old.
Oh.
And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, his friend was surprised to see him there. He says, but you're my friend. I care about you. And he says, I looked around and I saw guys I went to school with, and I saw another friend of mine whose father passed away. And as he's talking to me, he started to cry. And I said, it's okay to cry. It's okay. Let your emotions out. He goes, no, you don't understand. For many years, I didn't have a good relationship with my father. And over the last few years, it started to get better. But there were a few years that it wasn't good. I said, but you have a good relationship now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Build on that. Grow from there. Don't look at the bad, whether it was your
Mm-hmm.
fault, his fault, whatever. Somehow or another, you're starting to put it behind you and move forward. So move forward and cry. And it's okay to cry. And it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
cry to your father.
Mm-hmm.
As long
I
as you're
teach.
crying in a way that's giving yourself the understanding that I'm releasing my emotions in a positive, helpful way.
Mm-hmm. I teach the same thing, Martin. I teach that you have to let yourself cry, and you have to let the people cry instead of telling them stop crying,
Yeah,
because that's your body releasing that emotion.
exactly.
Your body needs to cry because, oh my God, it feels so good after crying.
Yeah,
When you cry it out, you feel like, oh, so nice and
yeah.
calm. Everything is peaceful again
I
because the
actually called
body
him
needs.
back. I actually called him back 10 minutes after our conversation. I said, listen, I'm here for you. If you need to call
Mhm.
back again, don't hesitate to call me.
Yeah. And for somebody else who has somebody who's crying next to them, let them cry
Let
and
them cry.
just hold the space. You don't have to give them advice or anything.
No, no,
Just
just be
hold the
there.
space. It's okay.
Yep,
When it's all out, then we're gonna keep on talking. You don't have to
exactly
do
right.
anything.
Exactly right. I agree.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
part of it right there. And I got to say, you're going to have to practice, as you mentioned. It's not going to be the first time. Oh, I did great. It just doesn't work that way. And even when you master it, there will be times where you just freak out.
Hmm.
There's no such thing as perfection in a person. There's no perfect person. There might be a perfect score or a perfect something, but there's perfect There's not perfect people. Everybody is always having issues in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's always progressing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay if you take a couple of steps back, as long as you recognize it, take responsibility for it, and then say, how am I going to move forward from here?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well now let's bring the happiness in
Yeah,
Worrier. What is
absolutely.
the happiness in the Worrier?
So the happiness in the Warrior is waking up every morning and recognizing by gratitude, thank you, God. Thank you, whoever my higher power is, for this and for that. And write down three things every single morning that you're grateful for. Now, for
Mm-hmm.
me, after that, I pray.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Orthodox Jewish. I'm
Mm-hmm.
spiritual. I pray. I put on the tefillin, which is the straps around the arm, and I spend 20 minutes to a half an hour praying uh, to God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my connection to God, my spirituality. And then after that, for me, I say my mantra. I live incredibly full every day because I set myself up looking for opportunities, looking for the positive in things,
Mm-hmm.
looking to be happy.
Mm-hmm. That's
Instead of looking to be angry, instead of
mm-hmm.
looking to complain, I look for the things that will make me happy.
Mm-hmm. And you said it's beautiful. You're setting yourself up for that day to find happiness, to create happiness, and to be happy. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And you're not you. I like the way you're saying you setting yourself up. You're not waiting it for happen to you.
Yeah.
That you will go like whatever. Maybe the day is going to be like this, sad, happy,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you actually have that goal. This is what I want
Right.
my day to be, and even if there's going to be like whatever, something else will happen, but then you'll find some kind of positive outcome to whatever happened. That's the way.
Exactly right.
Well, yeah, cool. So, what do you? I have this kind of question. What do you think everybody else have misbelief about what happiness is?
Well, I think that goes to the old thing of the grass is always greener in the other side, in
Mm-hmm.
somebody else's lawn. Stop looking for what everybody else is. Stop comparing yourself to the billionaires out there or to your next door neighbor that might have a Mercedes when you're driving a Toyota.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about them. It's about you being happy with what you have and not trying to keep up with the Joneses, not trying to say, oh, I don't have the best marriage because this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't have the best marriage, and I could talk from experience, it's because what did I contribute to the marriage that made it good and that made it bad? And I
Mm-hmm.
could look easily and say, I was a victim in the marriage, but I was also a culprit. I was also part of the problem as to why it didn't succeed. We had many very happy years. And I'm very happy
Mm-hmm.
to say, after a few years of tough times with my ex wife, I have a good relationship with her now.
Mm-hmm.
We have 4 children together, we have 8 grandchildren together. We
Mm-hmm.
must coexist,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I needed to learn that even when I'm going through coaching, even when I'm doing this, there was still things that were there. And it was about me recognizing it and not looking to blame anybody else and say, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to make the best of it. I'm not, and it's not a way of me, uh, uh, um, it's not a way of me tolerating it. It's
Mm-hmm.
me accepting it and
Mm-hmm.
saying, this is my life. That's her life. What's going on in her life is none of my business. And what she thinks about me is none of my business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. So because you can't stay stuck on the past on this way. There was
Nope. Nope.
there's some kind of book that I was reading, and the person was telling their story. They were flying on a plane with somebody, and he asked the passenger next to him, "Were you are you married or single?" And the person said like, "I'm divorced." But he's like, "Well, are you married or single?" And it's like, "I'm divorced." It's like, "Well, how long time ago you divorced?" It's like, "Well, I divorced whatever, let's say 13 years ago." It's like, "Well, but I'm asking right now, are you married or single, and he was still back in 14 years or 13 years back
Right.
in getting that divorce instead of like figure out like, well, now I'm single or I'm married, you know?
Right. Exactly.
The mindset
Exactly.
was like already
You're still
13
living in the
years
past.
old.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Exactly.
So we had to learn to leave that past in the past and figure out what we are now.
100%. I agree. 100%.
Mhm. That's cool. Okay, I'm gonna put your website up again, and let's talk about more of the things that you're doing first, and then we're gonna talk more about closing out everything what we talked about.
Okay. Cool.
So because you're doing coaching first, right? And then
Right. So
okay.
I came up with this website. It's called connectwithmartin.com. This way you don't have to try to figure things out. And you can get a lot of things there. You can get my book there. You can
Mm-hmm.
get which a link will take you to Amazon to buy the book.
Mm-hmm.
You can get the cards, which will you click on the link and you can purchase the cards. You
Mm-hmm.
could also sign up to have a free session with me. You could
Mm-hmm.
also get free gifts on there, like what we talked about, building your emotional strength. You can get the chart and the workbook to work through that. I have another thing on the website, which is a coloring book for children and a different coloring book for adults on having an abundant warrior mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I use the word warrior for the 7 secrets for an abundant warrior mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all about happiness. That's all about looking for the good, looking for positivity, and not trying to say it's somebody else's issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting, Martin. Would men use the coloring book?
Why not?
Have you used that coloring book? Because that's interesting. I always know that women they do coloring book, but I think men should try it. If they're
Yeah.
not doing it, they should just try it to
Right.
try
And by the
something
way,
new.
a little secret, it's okay to draw outside the lines. You know,
Yeah.
nobody's going to judge you because you colored outside the lines. So you
Mm-hmm.
download the book, you learn about how to have an abundant mindset, and you
Mm-hmm.
color while you're doing it, and it helps for you to get through it. I started out with the children's one, and then somebody asked me, "I want one too." I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, let me make one for adults as well."
You have to make one specifically for men.
No, the one I made is for both men and women. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Cool.
okay. It goes for
So
men and women.
all the men watching, get the coloring book too.
There you go. Go to connectwithmartin.com and you get a free coloring book.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank
And
you.
then this new book, and you have two books, right?
Yeah,
Actually, but like this one is the one that's now
yeah.
getting out.
Worrier to Warrior. It's a bestseller on Amazon. I'm very excited about it. If you can see from the picture, I went from being somebody who worries to being happy. I'm a warrior now.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And everybody watching, you can do the same thing.
Yep.
It's all the same. It's
It's
just
in your
knowing what
hands.
to do. Knowing what to do, first you have to acknowledge, yes, I want to do this. And
Yes.
I'm going to do this.
Yes. I actually get even deeper. Instead of saying acknowledge, I say admission. Admit that what the way is working, things are going right now are not working for me. And I got to move forward. I got to change what's not working.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. From we're gonna start closing. Before we're gonna say some closing thoughts, I always ask these questions from my guests as well. Uh, for you, Martin, just for you, not for other people, what other people think about, but for what is happiness just for you?
Happiness for me is accepting everything as it is and looking to grow, accepting that the world is great and that I have everything I need in my life. And that doesn't mean I'm giving up. That doesn't mean the life ends. And I'm always looking to pursue more.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then name just really simple, maybe three or something around that, activities or items or things that make you have that feeling of happiness.
Okay. So for me, one of the things that I love to do is I love to cook. And my cooking came as a result of getting a divorce. I knew how to cook a little bit before. My
Mm-hmm.
wife wouldn't let me in the kitchen because I was a slob. to be honest. But once I got divorced and I was living 60 miles away, and my children would come for the weekend, and I mentioned I'm Orthodox Jewish, and they'd say, Dad, we don't always want to go to grandma or to your sister's for dinner, for Friday
Mhm.
night dinner. I'd say, okay, if you let me learn how to cook, I'll do that. So now I love to cook. I
Mhm.
and for me, it makes me happy for two reasons. While I'm cooking, I'm in a great space. I'm focusing on that and I'm just enjoying it. But more importantly, which could be number two, is I love when people sit together, family and friends, enjoying each other's company and enjoying the meal I made for them.
Mhm.
And everybody just enjoying everybody and the food.
Mhm. I
So
love
that,
that part. I
thank
love
you.
that part about cooking as well. When the family is actually the cooking is part of their uh, spending time together. A lot of that. Some cultures even have it bigger. I don't know any example right now to bring out, but they have this cultural cooking time when they for hours they sit and eat and cook.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So that's a
I
big part for me is
I had
cooking.
one time I
And
remember before you're gonna say something
yeah,
else.
yeah, go ahead.
When I was younger, I had one my friend and her mom did it a lot of time, and she had my friend. She had also two brothers, three brothers, and one sister. Big family. But we were sitting in a kitchen. Mom was cooking. Brothers were coming in with their friends and everything, and we were there 6 hours sitting at
Fantastic.
the table with different people coming in and out from the house.
Isn't that
It was
wonderful?
one of my really, really cherished memories.
Beautiful. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's a fantastic memory. I love that. I love when people are in and out, just enjoying each other's company all day. And I'd say the last thing that really I find happiness is spending one-on-one time with my grandchildren. My granddaughter here, then one day, my one of my grandsons, one another, just spending time with them, just me and them getting to be close together.
Hmm. That's amazing. Nice. That's all, why I'm asking that question from all the guests because I want to point out to all the viewers that you have to find out what are those happy things for you.
Yeah, yeah, you have to
And
look for them.
those are really simple everyday things. And
Yeah,
that's where your happiness emotion comes from. Really simple everyday things.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great
And I
question.
wanted to actually point out because I looked at your YouTube channel as well. You have cooking with videos with cooking as well.
I do.
So for the viewers, look up Martin's YouTube channel because there's some cooking shows with
Yeah,
him
just
as
go to
well.
YouTube, type in Martin Salama, and you'll get some. I do coaching and cooking together.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Yeah.
get a little coaching while they're watching me make. Most of the meals I'm making are from Middle Eastern descent. That's where I come from. My family's from the Middle East, and I make Middle Eastern dishes. I also, you mentioned you saw me making mozzarella, so
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
And also for the viewers, one thing I like, Martin, what you said as well was you learned cooking later in life. So for the viewers and for men, you don't have to be stuck with whatever was always. You can learn new things.
Yes, it's I call it adapting.
Mm-hmm.
Adapting to what's going on around you. I needed to learn how to cook. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, "Oh, I got to cook, I got to figure this out," I embraced it. And now I love it. And my
Mm-hmm.
wife, my now wife, she works in corporate. She leaves early in the morning, she comes home late at night. I'm the cook in the house. She's
Mm-hmm.
a great cook, but she doesn't like to do it, especially because she gets home and she doesn't want to focus on that. So
Mm-hmm.
I do it and I love it and I love feeding her and her children and my children when my
Mm-hmm.
children are around.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So before we're gonna close up, what are the words or things you wanna close up this for make people I want to bring something not right now, not with the worrying or warrior, but happiness.
Right. So for me, it starts with live incredibly full every day.
Mm-hmm.
That encompasses happiness. That encompasses meaningful. That encompasses everything. If you wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to live incredibly full every day, starting today and continuing every single day, you're looking for the happiness. Go out and go to the supermarket and smile and make the cashier laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And after they laugh, say, thank you. You helped me fill my quota to get somebody to laugh every single day. And then they're like, oh, wow. They're connecting with you. And they realize that you are doing it because you want to connect with them. It's not just here's a joke and walk away. And then I tell them, pass it on, pay it forward, let somebody else laugh.
I like that. I like that so much. So for the viewers, I'm gonna end it on this one right now
Okay.
because that's a great end for this. So exactly what the viewers, just what Martin said right now. Go and do it today. Don't wait. Well, if it's too late in the night, you can't maybe do it, but if possible, do it today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait for anything for tomorrow. Do it today. All those things, do those things today. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peretta. It's been a pleasure being here with you.
Yes, great interview, great information, and all the viewers. Thank you so much for watching. There's other episodes about Men's Guide to Happiness. This one is the seventh one. Altogether, there's 20. Maybe there will be more, but right now 20. So make sure to watch all of them because we need more happy men. We need happy men and women, but we need more happy men. Yeah, thank you, Martin. Thank you for the viewers. Bye.